Savior. 'Cause I Life and ministry has made such a great impact on the lives of so many people. And tonight we'll be hearing from many of them. Before we get to that place, we want to give place for the family to give their tributes to the late Pastor Fred Seaward. So tonight we're going to kick off with a video clip for the church and the children in Nepal whom they call Pastor Fred as Grandpa, and they are very close to him. And then after that, the family will come and share the tributes to him, Sister Debbie, Brother Raju, and then Sister Diane Seaward, and Oliver Seaward. Right, so if you can put your eyes on the screen, here's the video of the Nepal. In honor of him, we will sing a song.
Oh, on behalf of the family also, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. It's hard to say goodbye to a wonderful father. But over the past 2 days, it was reinforced to me 3 things about my father. Number 1, his love for souls. First and foremost, God's called on his life to go out and reach people who had never heard of him, of Jesus. Was number 1. Number 2, as so many people came on the last 2 days and shared, some I knew, some I hadn't met before. Recurring was the father heart that he had, and how he was a father to so many people. Some who had their own fathers, some didn't, but he was still a father to all of them. And the third thing was the humble servant heart that he had. All the little things that he did for people that were shared with me, from helping to move refrigerators, replying by a text telling someone how to find out whether their curling iron would work, or going down in a drain to get a ball for a young boy and someone who my father was just delivering a package to, and the ball fell in the drain, and he went down in when no one else would and got the ball for the little boy. Just so many stories over and over again. And I thought to myself, if I could have those things said about me, that I love souls, that I had a father-mother heart, mother I guess, since I'm a mother, and that I would be a servant and serve people, I believe he fulfilled God's call on us. I have a tribute here from my adopted sister, basically, Sister Katrina and her husband, Reverend Tansri Dr. Prince Gunaratnam, and Kwansri Dr. Katrina Gunaratnam, a tribute to the late pastor, Reverend Dr. Frederick Oliver Seaward. Katrina and I would like to express our deep love and admiration for Pastor Fred Seaward. Katrina, as a teenager, received Jesus Christ through the ministry of Pastors Fred and Margaret Seaward. They became not only her spiritual parents, but also parents because of family persecution. She had to leave home as she was the first one in the family to receive Christ. In time, the Seawards were also instrumental in seeing her parents come to know and accept Jesus Christ. Pastor Fred Seaward has been an inspiration to our ministry in many ways. His passion for ministry showed no bounds, whether in sacrificial giving of himself, reaching the lost, or supporting those who are called to the ministry. He was our role model from the time we began our full-time ministry. There are too many memories to recount. We remember one instance he was instrumental in giving us his Volkswagen van when we were pioneering Glad Tidings Church in Klang. We have been in ministry now for more than 50 years, and Pastor Fred Seaward has always been there for us during our good times and challenging times. We will always be grateful to God for the life of Pastor Fred Seaward, who has impacted us, our family, and ministry. And it's signed Prince and Katrina.
received today a tribute from Reverend Dr. Dilip Chetri, the previous superintendent of the Assembly of God of Nepal and now the prison mission director. So I'm going to read that first. It says, Reverend Fred Seaward has been a great influence in my personal life. Way back in the 80s when I went to Singapore, probably the first time Pastor Fred came to receive me and my friend at the airport. Later, I knew that he was a man with so many responsibilities, yet he took time for us, the youngsters. He also dropped us at the airport when we had to return. My friend and I were amazed with the kind of love and care he displayed towards us, whom he knew very little about at the time. He was truly a man of humility and had great love for people. One could simply experience it once in contact with him. Over the years, every time Pastor Fred met me, he hugged me, and I felt so much warmth. He was a true father figure for me. Years ago, when I went to India with my wife for theological studies, with whatever finance we had, that finished in 5 months. We struggled between faith and worry for finance. It was Pastor Fred who regularly sent enough support for the next 2 years until the study was over. This he did without our request. For my wife and me, it was like manna coming from heaven every month until our journey in the wilderness of India was over. His sharing of the word with great passion was another great strength of his life. Every time he preached, we got greatly encouraged, motivated, and blessed. His preaching during his several visits to Nepal blessed and encouraged thousands in Nepal. Time and again, he made personal faith pledges to build a number of church projects in Nepal. He also contributed from his church and taught us about faith pledge, helped us raise funds from among us and not to look and depend on outside help. He practiced himself first, and he made us do the same. Since then, most of our churches have been practicing this principle. He is a great giver and motivator. He has touched many lives, particularly church leaders in our nation. We thank God for Pastor Seaward for his exemplary and sacrificial life. We pray for Sister Seaward and bereaved family members at this hour of grief. With my dad's going, I've lost a friend, a confidant, and also somebody who very practically advised me on every little thing. Especially when my vehicles go broken down, I'd call him up. And when the mechanics couldn't figure out what was wrong with it, I would tell him, or I'd ask him, is it really true what they're saying? And just telling him over the phone the sounds that the car was making or whatever, just even some months ago. It had been in the workshop for 2 months. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. And when I told him, he said, it's number 1 this, number 2 this, number 3 this, or all 3. And so I went to the mechanic and I said, it's this, this, this. They said, no, and I said, you go and search it out, because I have an authority who's told me. And later, the mechanic said to me, who is this person that told you? Because all 3 was the problem. They changed it and the car's now working and was able to be used in ministry just recently, taking speakers out to places. And this mechanic said to me, he said, who is this man who just hearing the problem can diagnose it so correctly and accurately? Next time he comes to this country, introduce him to me. I want to shake his hand and congratulate this great man. And so I've lost somebody who I can ask, not just practical things, but without my dad, I wouldn't be here today. I can remember a time in the 80s when I planned a trip across Siberia on the railway. I felt it was God. I booked my ticket, and everything was ready, and I asked for his blessing, and he wouldn't give it to me. And I kept pestering him and asking him, Dad, this is God. He wants me to do it. God's told me to do it. And he just said, no. And I said, are you telling me no from the Lord, or are you telling me no just as a father that's worried? And he said, I'm telling you no from the Lord and no from the Father, and no is no. And I kept on pestering him. And finally he said, if you want my blessing, I cannot give it to you, but you want to go without my blessing, go ahead and go. And I said, I can't, so let me go. Give me your blessing. He said, I cannot, I will not. And I was so frustrated because I was so sure it was God's will, but I canceled the trip. And later when I read in the news, that train, that exact train I was booked on, it had blown up. And almost everybody was killed from the train. So I wouldn't have been here if I hadn't listened to what, my dad said. That's just one example. He guided me. I remember the first time he came, and the work was very, very small, just a few people. We didn't take up offerings even. And he said, where's the offering? Where's the tithes? I said, Dad, everyone's so poor. They don't have any money. He said, that's why they're poor. They're not giving. And he goes, and I said, but Dad, they can't have it. I'm giving them, He said, you're keeping them poor. And I said, but Dad, where are they going to give it? And he asked me this question. He said, do you pay tithe? I said, yes, I do, Dad. You know I do. He said, do you think that God is only your God and not their God? And I realized, he said, that's your spirit of covetousness. You pay tithe, you are taught, but you still don't understand that God is God. You're still being controlled by money. And so I began to teach people to tithe because of a big scolding from Dad. Some years later, the church was a little larger. He came, there was tithes and offerings. I was so happy, I thought he'd say, you're doing so well. But he said, where's the faith promise? And again, I said, Dad, I'm sorry. They can't, they could barely make it, Dad. And again, and so we began doing faith promises, and now, and they learn to give. They learn to give. And now a point has come to a place where, basically the needs and giving out and giving to missions as well. So that's my dad. He just was a guy. They all love him. They just love him so much. And I think I've exceeded my time. So one of the young men that I raised and looks to my dad as grandfather, he really wanted to come, but he's ministering right now in Nepal. He lives in London. He pastors the Nepali congregation of London Family Center, and he wanted to fly over here, but I said, you're supposed to be preaching there. Please don't leave there, So he stayed back. He wrote a short tribute. Another of the ones, Raju, who's here right now and has been ministering in Australia, I've asked him to read the tribute that Timothy wrote, and then he'll share his own short story. Thank you so much. I miss you, Dad. No one will ever take your place.
I'm just going to read my brother what he has written in verse. He has written, growing up under a single mother who was not married herself, I felt a big void of an earthly father figure in my life. Grandpa Seaward stepped into my life, and one way or another, he showed me how an earthly father's love is like. He gave me so much good advice and was always there if I ever needed to speak to someone. I will greatly miss him, but I know he is in a better place because he has run his race and finished his race, but now it's my turn to run faithfully because I know Grandpa Seaward will want me to run my race faithfully and finish my race one day like he has done. I will miss you, your grandson, Timothy. I had a privilege of working under him for almost 8 years in Indian Church. As coming from the street, not having a father, not knowing how man has to behave, and not having a role model as a father. He was the fatherly figure to me too. And working under him, these three things that I will always take with me in my life, and I'm going to teach these three things to my children as well. Number one, humility. I learned from him how to be humble. And number two, love for people. He has always told me, Raju, need to love people because people is God's heartbeat. And when we say people, we're not only talking about the physical body, we're talking about souls. And I will teach that to my children too. Third, diligence. And he was a hard-working man. He worked hard. And I learned from him to work hard and be diligent at my work and be faithful. And I will greatly miss him as my grandpa. And I will always love him until I meet him physically. Thank you.
So many things could be said about my father-in-law. He was a remarkable man. But I want to share what he meant to me and to my family. First of all, he had to have had great faith to give his blessing for his son to marry me. He had never met me and must have been in shock and very worried when Rick called him and told him he wanted to ask me to marry him. I'm thankful he gave his blessing, although I'm sure he fasted and prayed that his son was making the right decision. 10 days after we were married in May 1975, we landed in Penang, where my husband's parents were living at the time. From the moment I met my father-in-law, he accepted me into his heart and into his family with no reservations. He always treated me as one of his very own children. For that I am so very grateful. I found myself separated from my own family and everything familiar by thousands and thousands of miles, but I found love in my second family. He was there whenever we needed help. If the washing machine broke down, he was there working throughout the night with Rick until it got fixed. When my son had a big boil on his leg, I called him and I said, Dad, Jonathan is in a lot of pain, and he told me exactly what to do, and it worked. Countless times he was there when we needed help. We didn't have Google help, but we had his help. It was just as good, trust me. The other thing that always comes to mind when we think of him is what a generous person he was. We experienced and witnessed that in many ways over the years. One day he showed up with several briefcases that had cutlery sets inside. He asked us to choose a set, and he asked Jeremy and Carissa to choose one too. We learned that someone had come to see him. The man was having financial difficulties and was trying to sell cutlery sets. So my father-in-law helped him. Where most people would have bought one set to help the man, he bought all of them.
Wow.
That's the kind of generous man he was. He didn't need cutlery sets, but he bought all of them and then gave them to everyone that he loved. He was so generous that my grandson Ethan asked him one day, Grandpa, are you rich? When we all stopped laughing, my father-in-law said, why do you think I'm rich? Ethan replied, because you always give us money. My father-in-law always had a few dollars in his pocket to give to his great-grandchildren when he saw them. And you know, Ethan was right. My father-in-law was rich. He was rich in the things that mattered. He was rich in kindness and generosity, rich in his love for God and for people. And we as his family were blessed to know him not only as a great man of God, but a loving father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He left us an inheritance that money cannot buy. He left us with an inheritance of grace, kindness, generosity, and faith. We have been blessed beyond words by him.
A visionary, a revivalist. He was a fiery preacher, a general among saints, but he was also a father, a husband, and a son. One of the fondest memories I have of my grandfather was during my time in Toronto. Whenever they would fly back, we would spend a lot of time together. On this occasion, I got in trouble for something, and my grandpa took me to the room to talk to me. And we just sat down on the bed with each other. He didn't scold me, he didn't yell at me, and he wasn't upset with me, but he just was kind, he was patient, he just talked to me, and everything he said wasn't wrong. Between eating at buffets and napping in their family, a lot of the things we did was just cuddle with each other in bed. I remember sometimes I would walk into the bedroom, I see my dad and my grandpa just talking, watching a sports game, and I would just jump in there and watch with them. And whenever my grandparents would be back, one of the things we would do a lot was play board games. One of them was Monopoly. And to this day, I'm convinced they learned up any chess a little bit. You know, we would argue and scold each other. You didn't pay our rent. You're in jail. You can't move. Those are the rules. I think it's best my family just stopped playing Monopoly. Yesterday, as I was leaving TAMPINES, I walked into the wrong line. Instead of the blue line, I walked into the green line, and I saw one of my friends. And after he saw me, he texted me. And one of the things he said just woke me up a little bit. He told me to be happy for my grandpa, because he was in a better place, a place free of pain. And that's when I realized, how can I be bitter when my grandpa, who was in pain, is free of pain? My grandpa, who was grieving, is reunited with his firstborn son. Who am I to question the reason why he was taken so soon? Yeah, it's painful. And people can say what kind of God would allow this, but God's plans are his plans. And I refuse to question God. Because, yeah, some of his plans involve pain. But pain in a plan doesn't make it a bad plan. You wouldn't call pregnancy a bad plan because it's painful. You call it a miracle, you call it a joy. And just a few bad moments in my grandpa's life doesn't make it a bad life. It doesn't nullify the life of joy, the blessing he was for all the people around him. Although I'm at a loss for words, I know he's experiencing a joy that is natural beyond all comprehension. He's in the hands of his Creator. My grandfather was a great man, and I love him a lot. This isn't a goodbye, it's just a see you again.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see.
Sing to us, grace.
It was grace that taught
we'll also be having a number of friends of the late Pastor Fred Seaward that will be sharing tributes to him. And first off, we're going to be having Honorable Judge Ko, and followed by Pastor Omar Lezio. Pastor Omar is the pastor of Victory International Church, and that's a church that Pastor Fred Seaward and Sister Margaret Seaward consider the home church whenever they're not ministering somewhere else. And after that, we're followed by Pastor Sun Kwek, who was mentored by Pastor Fred Seaward over the many years. So I invite the Honorable Judge Ko.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. May I just read a verse before I share the tribute for Pastor Fred Seaward? The scripture is taken from Micah chapter 6, verse 8. It says, "He showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to love humbly with thy God." We just heard the impact of Pastor Seaward's life in the ministry, in the kingdom of God, within the family, but you may not heard about the impact of his life in the secular world, in the marketplace. And you know, I've been in the public service for about 40 years, heard many cases, made many judgments. And one thing I have realized in the owner's responsibility that I've undertaken is never to send a man to jail more than one day he deserves. Because he's going to jail, I'm not going to jail. And never cane a person more than one stroke that he deserves. And these are values which I have learned because of the impact of Pastor Seaward's ministry in my life. And that's why I say you heard about his impact of his life in the kingdom of God, within the family, but in the marketplace. I mean, what can I say about a man like Pastor Seaward? He's a great man. I have seen my rate of people is really time's up. I've seen my rate of people who, in my career, but I esteem Pastor Fred Seaward very highly. All right, I mean, as you have heard on the overlapping values that he brings with his life, his humility, his magnanimity, his always willingness to help. His life is marked by love and service. And that's how he has impacted me. And I remember when I was still a very young guy, struggling in a law school and just became a Christian, and the church was going for a mission trip in China. And we were going to Guangzhou and Guilin. Your sister Seaward, remember that? And I wanted to go because I was hungry for the Lord, but I didn't have money to go. So I told Pastor Fred, I would like to go, but I have no money. He says, never mind, put your name there and we will pray. And then he came back to me later and says, Daniel, you're coming along. You don't know what kind of impact that kind of thing does to a young man who is striking out in life and finding his own level in how things are going to be. When my mother passed away, and I came from a family of Taoist worship, Buddhist, so I was the only son, and the ritual requires us to carry water across the bridge for the dead and everything. And my father was a very traditional man, and I knew it was going to be very difficult for me to tell my father that, sorry, Dad, I love you, I love Mom, but I am not going to participate in all this ritual because I'm a Christian. The church prayed for me, all right? So when the event came for me to perform the rite, my father strangely agreed that I will not perform that role required of the son, for my mother's death. And lo and behold, Pastor Seaward and Sister Seaward turned up. So that is the kind of impact the very personal impact. Something I really appreciate about Pastor Fred Seaward is that there is nothing rehearsed in his life. He is spontaneous. What you see is what you get. Right? And I'm sure all of you have been hugged by him at one point or another. So if you ever have a problem in your life, he just give you one hug and it melts away all the problem. I mean, that really is the measure of the man. And I'm here, I want to honor him. And when we honor Pastor Fred Seaward, we must also understand that Pastor Fred Seaward, as we have heard, loved his family dearly. He loved Sister Seaward, he loved his children, he loved his grandchildren, and also he loved the congregations. So when we honor Pastor Fred Seaward, we must honor his family. And this Seaward family are the blessing that the Lord has given to us in our part of the world. They have put their hands to the plow and they have never looked back. So can we just acknowledge the Seaward family?
We at Victory International Church, VIC, we salute a great warrior and spiritual father, our dear Pastor Fred Seaward, who had returned home to Jesus. Pastor Fred is one of the greatest messengers of God, and a true inspiration to all of us in VIC. It's our privilege and honor to receive his spiritual mentoring and teachings. We are really grateful for the time he was together with us. Jesus said, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you." You know where you are, Pastor Fred. You are together with the one who loved you first, with the one to whom you love most. You are with Jesus. When we see your life, we can see Jesus in you. Thank you for showing us how to love Jesus. Thank you for teaching us how to live a holy life for him. Thank you for your humble heart and your true commitment. Thank you for your words that bring comfort to our hearts. Thank you for shining the light of Christ through you. We will miss you in our church. We will miss you in our life. We will miss you on Sundays at VIC. How many times our hearts rejoice when we see you coming out from the church leave and you joining us together to worship God. We will miss your strong handshake. It was like a firm assurance that God is also holding our hands to walk in his presence. We will miss your Pastor Friend being used by God through prophetic words. Your words are always graced with God's love, and all the time addressing to honor God in every circumstance. You taught us how to overcome any challenge by trusting in Jesus, believing in his promises, declaring his words in our life. Pastor Fred led a completely surrendered life which constantly challenges us to consecrate our lives for God as we seek Christ in him. Though Pastor Fred has passed on from this life to be with the Lord, he is forever more than alive in our hearts. VIC, Pastor Fred, you are forever in our hearts.
Tonight I will preach. Someone said, vision is caught, not taught. I caught vision of Pastor Seaward as my senior pastor, as well as look at Pastor Seaward and wait and say goodbye to him. He is a pastor to me, but in my heart, he's also Papa Seaward to me. A living man who has shown through his life, left his legacy, his mark in this generation and many to come. I was greatly inspired by his great urgency to win souls. I hear at almost every altar call, eternity, eternity, where would you spend eternity? He would always say that. And that has greatly impacted me because he loves souls. His sense of urgency for souls was so great that I just caught it that I love souls too because of his passion. And he taught me and my husband about sacrificial faith and mission giving. During his tenure as a senior pastor in England, he inculcated the importance of faith giving to give beyond and above. He didn't just say it, he walked the talk by being a talk giver. He showed me, don't say with words, show it, demonstrate it with your life. A mission was always on his heart. Furthermore, he taught me about servanthood times is up and how to be a 24/7 pastor. When my father was in a critical health condition, I merely asked him for the Chinese pastor phone number, but when I reached the hospital in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., he already rushed from his home and was there with my father, even before us. And that touched my mom, my husband, and my heart. And also a precious lesson, finally, I learned from Pastor Papa Seaward was, one day, I asked him, Pastor, how do you last so long in your ministry? You know what he said? Pray, forgive, and move on. What a magnanimous man. And such word of wisdom. Every time I struggle with forgiveness, I will remember what he said. Pray, forgive, and move on. And finally, I want to thank him for being with me and my husband, believing in me, praying for me, and for standing with us through the storms of life and ministry. Pastor Papa Seaward, you'll be greatly missed by me and David, who followed you since he was 16 years old, from the days of Bethel to CCC to Elam. And I want to thank you, and I love you lots. Till we meet again in a sweet time. And I want to thank the entire Seaward family for giving me this opportunity to say thank you.
He touched me. Oh, he touched me. And all the joy that floods my soul. Something happened, and now I know he touched me and made me whole. He touched me. Oh, he touched me, and all the joy that floods my soul. Something happened, and now I know he touched me, and
going to have another group of people who have known Pastor Fred Seaward over the years, and they'll be coming up to do their tribute as well. And first off, we're going to invite Pastor Adrian Cole from Calvary Family Center at KK, then followed by Pastor Selvin, Senior Pastor of Calvary Family Center at KK, then followed by Pastor Eric Chong, Senior Pastor of People's Church, and then Sister Esther Chin, Pastor of the Myanmar Congregation in Lake Church, and then Brother Sam Victor. Pastor Adrian.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adrian from VFC KK. I'm standing here in honor of a man, a pastor, and a father, Reverend Dr. Seaward, who has changed my life. Pastor Fred was a man of God who had inspired and impacted countless lives. And I am privileged and honored to be one of them. His leadership by example, by lifestyle, passion for souls, and burden for the broken and the needy are unsurpassed. Pastor Fred was a leader who was firm and demanding yet gracious. I have learned from him about patience, endurance, submission, obedience, prudence, accountability. All the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Above all, trusting God in whatever situation. Pastor Fred was a man of substance, yet humble and unassuming. He didn't just teach me about lofty spiritual things, but also down to earth things like things beyond his duty, like changing light bulbs, fixing broken locks, etc. Tonight we are here celebrating a life well lived for the glory and honor of the living God, whom we have known through our Lord Jesus Christ. Heavens must be rejoicing in welcoming Pastor Fred home with the very word of Jesus. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of the Master. Thank you. God bless you.
Good evening, everyone. On Sunday morning, I received a text message that Pastor Fred Seaward has gone home to be with the Lord. My immediate thought that morning was, how am I going to communicate with the people who he loved and the people who love him dearly? And little did I know that God had already arranged my message and the day to finish the way it ended. As I stood there, God told me, what did I give you? And the title of my message that morning was a special outreach message. The title was The Race. And my concluding message was to finish the race like the Apostle Paul. As I concluded my message, I invited everyone to come to the altar, to put on their gospel shoes, to run the race for their generation and to finish well. The whole congregation responded. At the altar, I told them of another pair of beautiful feet that belonged to a giant of a man who walked among us, a heaven-minded runner who started his race from the shores of America in 1955 and came to Singapore and Malaysia to share the good news of Jesus Christ and started churches and raised many ministers. As our one senior pastor of Calvary Family Center from 2007-2016, he showed his practical love for God's house and his people. We were blessed to have him. On Sunday morning, as I shared that, and as the congregation stood there, the presence of God was so strong we recognized there was a heavenly crowd of witnesses. Pastor Fred was among them, and telling them, run the race. Today, I'm still wearing my sneakers. Because the best tribute we can pay for this great man of God is to run the race God has marked up for us and share the good news with everyone. On behalf of Calvary Family Center, we want to thank Jesus for the life of the late Pastor Dr. Reverend Fred Seaward.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the Seaward's family to allow me it's an honor to come and share this tribute from the bottom of my heart. In the year 1992 was the darkest year of my life. When my wife brought me to Village Church, and that's where I met my first pastor, Pastor Fred Seaward and Sister Seaward. Many were suspicious of my conversion. My pastors has been patient and they allowed me to grow in faith. And many years later, I encountered a great crisis that someone had falsely accused me. And that guy is a Christian brother from another church, but he hold a doctorate degree. And that brother from that church, the senior pastor told Pastor Fred and some of their friends that this guy holds a doctorate degree. How can you believe in this guy who is a nobody? And Pastor Fred stood and trusted me. And after many years, of struggling for the unforgiveness, one day I crossed paths with this guy. And I was very angry with him, but I didn't talk to him. And I came back and I told Pastor Fred, I said, Pastor, I met this guy so and so. He said, then what do? Do you greet him? I said, no. I was so angry with him. Pastor said, no, you must forgive him. And that's why I learned forgiveness from our dear Pastor Fred. To forgive someone. And he walked the line that many have falsely accused him, but he have with a magnanimous heart, he has forgiven him. And he's faithful too. He's faithful in everything. I thank God for his faithfulness in holding us, in helping my hands, and also for his fatherly love. That he has been a father to me. He taught me how to polish my shoe with banana skin. And he really did it in the presence of my wife. And my time is up, but I just want to leave one and remember the forgiveness, the faithfulness, the fatherly figure. But the last hand is for me to my Papa Seaward. I will forever remember you. You have fought a good fight. And it's not a good night, but it's a good night. I'll see Papa Seaward again. Thank you for the Seaward's family for sharing your father-in-law, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather with us. Thank you so much.
In many ways, and touch our heart on many occasions. I want to bring out three aspects of his life and impact on his church. Number one, because Pastor loved people from all walks of life, rich or poor, big or small, local and foreigners. Sometimes we wonder You see, if you're loving people so much, the only answer we could come up with is that the love of God overflowing in his heart and the river of love flowing out from him. We, EMCF, Millennium Christian Family, is the living testimony of his great love for the people and for the soul. Second, sacrificial giving. Pastor Fred not only had love for the people, he also had a great burden for souls. And he demonstrated by setting up many missionary work and sacrificial giving. Oh yes, even myself, so impacted. And one time I remember, after he had challenged us with sacrificial miracle offering, I have to give all of my savings, of course for once. He had done so many times, I believe. And after that, he continued to challenge us with giving more than what we have, giving beyond our means. I have learned to give so much, and every time Pastor challenged us, collect offering for the work of God, our wallets had lighter, but our bank account in heaven was heavier. He has taught us to store our treasure in heaven. As he always said, you can never outgive God. Then another thing that impacted me so much was his simple lifestyle. I can even call him Pastor. He's a hip and cool. Because Pastor always wear torn and tattered safari suit. Many sewing here and there. I noticed only recently a lot of young people, they're wearing torn and tattered jeans just to keep themselves cool. Pastor Fred had done it since 1990. That was our pastor, servant of God, with very simple lifestyle. Thank you, Pastor, for teaching us many things. I myself, so blessed to have you in my life as a pastor and mentor as I'm giving my full-time ministry. We will always remember you as long as our life is on. And we will see against you. Yes, we are.
Good evening. Let me first say thank you for the opportunity to say this. Let me take this time to say thank you, Pastor, for what you've done, not only in my life, but in the life of I think everybody here. I'm sure many lives have been touched who are sitting in this place. Pastor liked repairing things. I know because I've repaired cars and dryers and washing machines with him. But more so he was someone who sought out broken lives, broken things, and he repaired it, I was one of them. And that was his ministry. He would find people who are broken, who the world rejected, didn't want. But he would take them, he would work in their lives and teach them how to be useful vessels for the kingdom of God. He would turn people's lives into something God would use. That was the man that I knew and that I loved. he was very patient with most of us, mostly with me, because I think I gave him the most headaches in those years that I was about to say he was a wonderful man. He was patient, he was kind, and anytime you called him, and anytime you were in trouble, you just have to pick up the phone and call him. Day or night, he'll be there. And that's the thing that I know. He taught us how to be servants, he taught us how to be people that could go out and heal the world. And I will miss him very much. And I just want to say thank you, Pastor, for everything that you've done in my life and the life of all of us here. We are very grateful, and we will see you once again in that day when we meet. Bless you.
This time I'll be sharing a tribute from evangelist Philip Ming, who has been invited by Sister Mary Seaward and the family to share, but he has to be overseas. This is his tribute. I've known Pastor Fred Seaward since I was a teenager, and I've observed him through many lenses, as a young believer, as a church member, as a board member, as a special assistant, and then as a member of his pastoral team, and now as an evangelist. Having observed this man of God, I can sincerely say of Pastor Fred, he was more than a leader of men, he was a leader of leaders, and his influence transcends age barriers, social status, and even religious denominations. Secondly, he was a man with mountain-moving faith, a true pioneer and trailblazer, resolute in the pursuit of his goal for the extension of God's kingdom, and sticking to his gun with what he believed. Thirdly, he earned the respect of others through his meekness and example, he said, not through coercion. Fourthly, the salvation of souls was the paramount importance to him, and glorifying God was his priority. He shone in his life and shines even brighter today, as Daniel chapter 12 verse 3 says, those who are wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. In conclusion, I would like to mention that because of the prayer of Pastor Fred, and because of his example and his encouragement, I was inspired to take the step of faith and answer the Lord's call to ministry many years ago. Thank you, Papa Seaward. Amen. Thank God for all these wonderful tributes that have been given to Pastor Fred Seaward. At this time, we are blessed to have a performance by Sister Constant, a close family friend of the Seawards. And she's going to perform a solo, singing Pastor Fred's favorite song, From Heaven Flowing Down. And she'll be accompanied by Sister Nancy on the keyboard. Both Sister Constant and Sister Nancy are from Elite Church.
Thank you, Pastor. And thank you very much for singing this morning.
Thank you, Sister Thompson, Sister Nancy. Amen. And at this time, we will be hearing a word of exaltation from different pastors and ministers that have been impacted in their lives by the late Pastor Fred Seaward. He has been a missionary in Singapore, Malaysia, and many parts of the world, and started and planted many, many churches. I'm going to introduce two of them at this time, and they will come and share their word of exaltation to us. First up is the Reverend Dr. Robert Lim, the founding pastor of the Evangel Family Church Singapore. Reverend Dr. Lim was saved in Bethel Revival Center and later was launched into the ministry under the guidance of Pastor Fred Seaward. Then he will be followed by Reverend Pang Ek Kwak, the honorary pastor of Bethel Assembly of God. Bethel Assembly of God was founded by Pastor Fred Seaward. Pastor Pang was an assistant to him, and then later on, Pastor Pang took over the church subsequently. Reverend Dr. Robert Lim.
Sister Seaward, share your loss. Mary and myself love you, Brother Seaward. Thank you for bringing the gospel to us. We are ever grateful. And to the Seaward's family, share your loss, and we love you. We thank God for this wonderful family. He's always ready to do what is the will of God. When Sister Seaward told me, Robert, I want you to say something on the memorial service, and you have 10 minutes. I was just thinking, how am I going to concise the 10 minutes alive that has touched thousands in the last 65 years. But I'll do my best. God, in His mercy, has brought me to Bethel Assembly. Before that, Bethel became Assembly of God. It was called Revival Center in a small little church in Jensen Road. That's where I heard the gospel for the first time in my life. Then later, it became Assemblies of God. I was thinking of Brother Seaward. I said, what is the right word to say about him? I don't call him Pastor Seaward or Reverend Seaward. In the early days, we call Brother Seaward Sister Seaward. Maybe our English was not good enough, so we just call brother. And I said, God, give me the right word to say about this great man of God that has impacted my life in the last 60 years, almost 60 years. And this sentence came to me. Fred Seaward never give up. He never give up. He was faithful to the call. He was faithful to mission. He was faithful to church planting. He was faithful to evangelism. In the early years, he was the first pastor that will influence the church about faith promise. We have never heard of faith promise before that. He started it. He was the first pastor in Singapore that would take a group of students to evangelize small towns in Malaysia. And he faces lots and lots of opposition. Not from unbelievers, but but from minister of the gospel. Sometimes Christian frightens you. But he never give up. He never give up. When he started Berean Bible School, he was opposed. But Pastor Seaward knew what is God's will. What is obeying the call of the Great Commission. And no matter who you are that tries to block him, he will bulldoze. Because he do not believe in giving up. What he believes is the right thing to do, whether it is for a Bible school, for the denomination, for the church. He will push it through. I sat with him in many boards, with him in many committees. And sometimes the whole committee will go against him in what he believes is the right thing to do. And you can argue with him until your face turns blue. But he will not give up. He will not be angry. He just smiles at you. And at the end of the meeting, he will come and give you a hug. When we almost go into blows during the meeting. He will never give up on what he strongly believes is the best message and the best story and the best illustration to make the altar call. Many of you have heard him tell the story of the guy who got burned in the barns when he made the altar call. And I have heard young people walking out of the church and say, for crying out loud, I've heard that story don't know how many times. But Fred Seaward, to him, if that story is going to reach that one soul that needs to be saved, he refused to give up. He will tell the same story. Even 98% of the congregants heard it 100 times. He never give up. Today I stand before you because he never give up on me. In 1964 I went to Bible school. That was my first year in Bible school. At the basketball court there was a dog. And someone pointed to that dog and said, Robert, that's your father. I gave the guy a flying kick. And I nearly killed him. The principal was very kind. He came to me, he said, Robert, you are going back to Singapore for your holiday. This is the letter you are to give to your pastor, Fred Seaward. If he wants you to come back, he have to write to me. I went to Brother Seaward. I said, Brother Seaward, this is what I did. I got no excuse. Saved but not sanctified yet. I want to go back. He never gave up on me. He never gave up on many. That is why today we have thousands of churches planted all over the world. Dear friends, because he believed with God, anyone can accomplish. So he never give up. May we not give up what God called us to do. The world today has 7.7 billion people, of which 4.6 billion are in Asia. Let us be challenged by this man. Let us not give up. And let us press on. God bless you.
brothers and sisters in the Lord, members of the Seaward family, especially Sister Seaward, for giving me this opportunity to just say a few words regarding FO Seaward. I want to first of all thank the Lord Jesus Christ for giving me and my wife the privilege of coming to know Fred and his wife Mother Seaward in March 1964, when we were invited to attend the Sunday evening service at 5 p.m. Subsequently, we attended several more services on Sunday evening. And then on the 19th of April 1964, Fred Seaward was the speaker, and at the end of the service, he invited those who desired to be filled with the Holy Spirit to go forward and to get into the prayer room to pray. So together with a few brethren and myself, we entered the prayer room. I knelt down to pray. A few of the brothers laid hands on me and they encouraged me to keep on praying and never give up. Keep on seeking the face of the Lord. And then I was wonderfully and marvelously baptized in the Holy Spirit, and I spoke in tongues in that prayer room for more than 2 hours. And I believe it's the prayer of Pastor Seaward and his wife. It's the intercessory prayer. I really thank them for the good advice and the counsel that I received. And then when I was after I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, I came out at the door of the prayer room, and this is what Fred Seaward said to me. He said, "Brother Pang, I rejoice with you for having received the gift of the Holy Spirit. Remember, this is only